As someone that's never owned a PlayStation console, I really was excited when I heard The Last of Us Part 1 was coming to PC, and so were many others. Now, I've played bits of this game before, sure, from people that have owned PlayStations before, but as someone that's always been Xbox, this was my first opportunity to play this game for its entirety. And being hyped up off of the back of the HBO show, more and more people are looking forward to playing this game completely. But what's this? Only 33% of players given this game a good review so far, and the rest of it is rated mostly negative? Well, that can't be right, because this game has been re-released twice, one on the PS5 and now on the PC, both for full price, so clearly people are excited for it, and clearly the game's good enough to re-release. The game's great, right guys? Well, this PC port is great, it's a great fucking mess, I'll tell you that much. Now first off, let's get this out of the way. This is The Last of Us. The story is incredible. This port, however, is the thing that is making everyone so mad and making these reviews absolutely tank. And rightfully so. This is a game that came out 10 years ago. It's just re-released. Nothing major, a graphical enhancement which happened with the PS5, and this is just a PC port. And everything about this port is wrong. Completely wrong. The main thing is the optimization. This game runs on my system at no higher than 65 FPS on high settings at 1440p. My system is running a 3090 graphics card, a 5950X and 128 gigs of RAM, in case you were wondering. That is not an entry level system. That is not a system that expects to just rock a 60 frames. And even then, those 60 frames are choppy as anything. In the game, when you can actually play it, and I'll get onto that in a second, in the game, it just feels stuttery. When you're moving your mouse across the screen and when you're interacting with your keyboard, it just feels stuttery and unresponsive. And those 65 to 80 FPS that I'm getting feels like 30 to 50. When you first load up the game and you're just sitting in the menu, for the first time you'll notice that you'll be compiling shaders. This is another issue. This takes forever, and we all know that you're going to want to compile shaders to get a smoother experience whilst in the game, and it'll also look better. So of course people are going to wait out this percentage slowly going up on your screen that tells you that it's nearly ready, but not quite yet. And I waited 45 minutes for my shaders to be compiled. Now, that barely gives you time to play the game properly to see whether you're going to like it or not before you can refund it. And a lot of people are going to want to refund it because when you do get in the game, the crashes are phenomenal. I had 4 game crashes where it literally booted me back to the Steam home screen 4 times whilst I was playing as Sarah. And for someone that doesn't play the game, let me just tell you that shouldn't take more than 20 minutes. That should not take more than 20 minutes, that little segment where you're playing as Sarah. So, a crash where the game completely closes itself 4 times in 20 minutes. That wasn't a good impression, and let me tell you, it didn't get much better. The only time it got better is when I turned on a third-party automatic RAM cleaner, and that just proves that there is a memory leak. Now, for me, a memory leak doesn't usually affect my system because of the amount of memory I have in it. However, this one, it did. Now, even with the memory cleaner, it still crashed like hell. Now, to put that into perspective, at the point that I met Bill for the first time, that was my 10th crash. I crashed at that point, and that was my 10th crash. And that isn't late on in the game at all. And for people that have played it before, they'll know that. And I tried everything. I mean, it's a story-driven game, so you want the absolute best out of your graphics, but I thought maybe it might be that. Maybe top-of-the-line graphics isn't gonna cut it. So I dropped the graphics down a little bit, and it reduced my VRAM from 12GB being used to about 9, which is still a heck of a lot, really, for a game that is technically 10 years old, even though it's got a little graphical overhaul. But even that didn't stop the crashes. Now, I'm pretty far through in the game now. I've met Sam and I'm having a good time. And even with the crashes, it's still a brilliant game and a brilliant story. However, when you're crashing so frequently and as a first-time player, it really does take away from the immersiveness of the story, and it is upsetting. Now, I know a lot of people wanting to know this, so As a Steam user, you get 14 days and a playtime of less than 2 hours to get an automatic refund of your game. Now, between all the crashes and the compiling shaders, I made sure to keep this in mind and I timed it. My 2 hours was up before I even said goodbye to the prologue and I saw The Last of Us come up on screen. I didn't get to experience any proper gameplay in the first 2 hours of me actually playing the game, because 45 minutes I was sitting in the home screen and I was sitting waiting for my shaders to complete, and then the rest of that time I was sitting around playing as Sarah and then a tiny little bit of Joel when I was just walking through my hometown. That's it. No proper gameplay at all. No post-apocalyptic world, no immersive experience. It was just a terrible first impression. And unfortunately, it doesn't get any better when I start to talk about how the game feels to play normally. Now, as I mentioned earlier, it just feels unresponsive when you're playing on mouse and keyboard. The stutters are crazy, and anytime you transition from one scene to another, the drop in frames from going inside to outside or going from cutscene to gameplay is so harsh and so sudden that it really jars you. And then when you're playing as keyboard and mouse, the stutters when you're moving your mouse from left to right or right to left is really, really bad. Where you notice it the most though is when you're opening a door or when you're getting jumped by an enemy and you need to defend yourself and you've got to smash some buttons. Mashing the F key 50 times feels like the game only registers it twice or 3 times. I was killed twice even though I was mashing the F key because it didn't think I was mashing the F key. Now, it's not all doom and gloom, obviously. Like I said earlier, it's The Last of Us. The story is incredible. The gameplay is hella fun when it wants to work. And unfortunately, it's just the optimization and the unresponsiveness to this PC port that just really lets it down. And Naughty Dog are aware of this. They posted it pretty much instantly, where they announced a few problems that people were having, like the game not booting at all, and the shaders taking forever, and the game crashing, and all of these fun things, and they are going to patch them. But we haven't got a release window for this. We've just been told to keep an eye on the community pages, and we just have to wait and see. But for a game that's been out for so long, and has been remade a couple of times, and ported over to a later generation of console, although yes, it is the same console as it was originally made for, you'd still think that the game might be a little bit more polished than not booting at all or crashing every 20 minutes. It's not a beta game. The game's been out for a very long time, and this port has been in the works for a very long time. You'd think a game with this much hype around it, you know, coming off the back of the HBO series and just how immensely popular this game franchise is, coming to a brand new group of players that may have never played it before, you'd think that there'd be a little more testing involved and a little bit more quality control, because if this game was even tested for 5 minutes, they would have been able to see that there's crashing issues, there's performance issues, there's input lag, there's a memory leak. And they would have been able to see this very early on. This is the final build, and it isn't like the build has changed from 10 years ago. It's just graphically overhauled, but that happened way back when as well. It didn't just happen for this release. The graphics are the same as the PS5, however, my system that is immensely more powerful than a PS5 can't get above 60 FPS in an outdoor area. Anyway, I've done enough rambling. This game is The Last of Us. The story is good, but the performance is terrible on PC. Whether I think you should play it or not, currently, no, I don't even think you should purchase it or waste your money. It's a full price game, and you'll be crashing like everyone else, and if it's your first time playing The Last of Us, it really will hinder your impression of the game and really will ruin your immersion. That being said, if you've already bought the game and you're waiting to play it and you haven't touched it yet, I would refund it, personally, and I would wait until the patches come out. If you have played it for more than the window that I mentioned earlier, those 2 hours, and you've decided that the performance is too much for you as well, then I'd recommend getting that refund while you can, and if you can't, then wait it out. This hopefully will be patched, but the fact that we don't know when is pretty depressing. Now the game will work in between the crashes, but do you want to put up with that? That's the big question that you got to ask yourself. Anyway, that's enough of my rant telling you how shit the PC port of The Last of Us is, and I hope many of you are already aware, because the more people are aware, and the more people that complain and send bug reports, the quicker, we hope, this gets fixed. And if it doesn't, then that's just gaming in 2023. It just goes to show that you should never pre-order a game like this, because you never know how shit it's going to turn out, even if you know how good the game actually is. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Hopefully this gets fixed soon. Other than that, really enjoying The Last of Us. But that's a big other than that, isn't it? Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.